Hey everyone. As you might have guessed, this show will be a little bit different. There won't be any intro music. It won't have the normal format, and it's all written down. My apologies if it's sounding as if I'm reading it all from a piece of paper, which is what I'm doing, but I wanted to do that to give myself a bit of a crutch so I don't get lost in thought or forget important things that I want to say. I will be talking about the stories of abuse, sexual harassment, and online bullying this show. And even calling today's episode a show feels wrong and too sensationalized for me. Know that I don't mean it like that, but that's how I simply have always called my podcast, and every episode has always been a show. If this is a subject you can't listen to because of various reasons, then don't. I'm not expecting everyone to want to listen to this, and I get that. And I will see you all next week with the more regular format of the show. One of the reasons I wanted to do this show was because I find it important to address these issues in the online community. Whether that's on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, or just in World of Warcraft. I also think it's important that victims of abuse, harassment, and bullying are given a voice when in the past many of them have been silent by disbelief, gaslighting, or even fear. After seeing all the stories of the victims being put out there for the world to see, I couldn't help but feel immense anger, sadness, and betrayal. I've seen many angry tweets to the abusers and predators, and many messages of support to the victims. I can say that the community is shocked. But are we really surprised? There are many messages of people noting that some victims who did come forward with their experiences weren't believed, or it got swept under a rug, or all for different unacceptable reasons. I've been sickened by responses from mostly Twitter accounts that gaslight victims, or victim blame, or even call them liars or keep screaming about, where's the proof? And I think that this is what's wrong with our online presence nowadays. People are anonymous. People find it funny to be edgy or to be total assholes online because there are no consequences for their behavior. Shouldn't we, as a generation that is reasonably savvy online, teach our kids and our friends what is acceptable behavior and what is not? Should we not be able to call out people we thought of as friends to tell them what they are doing is wrong and it's not okay? Should we not defend the victims first? Can we stop justifying the abuse? I have felt immense betrayal this week from several people I thought were okay guys and girls in our community, until I was proven differently. I felt like an idiot, and I felt shame. What if I ever had sent a friendly message to this person as a content creator, and what if the victim saw my message as well and might have felt I would be one of those people who would not take their side because I showed kindness to their abuser before I knew they were abusers and predators. And this upset me. I felt lied to, but I can't imagine what the victims might have felt. My heart broke so many times this week, reading all of their stories. I will not lie and say that a part of me wanted to step away from this community. A place that I mostly experienced as safe and friendly now felt tainted and dangerous. But this is also a chance to make things better. It doesn't help to just stick your head in the sand and hope that things will blow over. That's not how this works. We have a job as content creators, as a community member, and as players to ensure that we do better. I cannot imagine what the victims have gone through and how much pain and suffering and isolation they might have experienced. I'm not in that same boat as them. Have I experienced abuse, gaslighting, sexual harassment? Yeah. Not all of it was online. it's almost rare to not have experienced anything like that nowadays, which is just awful to think. I will now share a few of these experiences that I've received from our community. I will not comment on the posts because they don't need a comment. They just need people to listen to them. So this first experience is from Zulzilla on Twitter, and Zul said it was alright to use their name. If someone comes to you to share a survivor story because someone in that story that is associated with you, your guild, your podcast, your organization, etc., and the first thing out of your mouth is anything about needing proof, you are the problem. You do not get to decide what is proof and what isn't. You do not get to decide what is true and what isn't. All you have to do is listen and take the survivor's word for it. It is not an easy thing to do. It is something you may struggle with. Societal codes of conduct have established the foundation on which that struggle exists. But the horrifying truth of it all is that most survivors do not share their stories. Fewer survivors than that go to the police. And rarely is there ever any proof. A history of survivors coming forward only to be dismissed and or blamed for what happened to them is the reason so many stay silent. Predators get away with what they've done because the system is built in their favor. I repeat, the system is built in the predator's favor. In the gaming community, I have received unsolicited nudes and unwanted verbal advances. I've been stalked online and at events. I've been in situations where physical advances were attempted despite my protests. Outside of the gaming community, I was raped by someone I trusted while I was far too intoxicated to give consent. A few years before that incident, I was held down by a boyfriend, a man I lived with, and I was starting a life with, while his best friend raped me. There is no tangible evidence of any of this. There are no text messages to screen cap. There is no proof. None. All I have to show for any of this is a few horrible stories and the weight of immense pain and trauma. You're not going to find evidence beyond emotional and verbal confirmation in a majority of the stories that the survivors in this community are sharing. You're going to find a painful experience made even more painful by your search to make sense of it all. Listen to survivors. Believe survivors. On the exceptionally rare chance that you stand by someone whose story does turn out to be fabricated, forgive yourself for being wrong about them, and don't hold that account against others who have come forward. I know it's not easy. None of this is easy. Believe survivors. Just please. Because this hurts. It really, really hurts. It is extremely taxing on survivors to continue having these same conversations over and over again. Stand with us. Fight for us. Listen to us. The next experience is from Demi, or Demi Fernoth, and she sent me a voicemail, so you can listen to that now.
Hi Sil, this is Demi, and this is my experience of sexual harassment and gaslighting with the person that I met in World of Warcraft. I've talked about this experience before, but I haven't actually named the person directly. And the recent stories from very, very brave men and women talking about the abuse that they have been through, and having the strength to name them has meant that I feel strong enough to do that this time. I haven't named him publicly before because we have a lot of mutual friends. And although they know what happened, I didn't really want to upset them by making this public. making his name public. What I experienced on the scale of what other people have been revealing is nowhere near as bad. But I also feel that it's important to talk about it and to name him, because it highlights how prevalent this behaviour is in the gaming community. And that's not just in World of Warcraft, that's in gaming across the board. So I'll set up what happened. I have screenshots of the messages that were exchanged when I confronted him initially 3 years ago, and then again when a recurrence happened last year. So I have my receipts, because I felt that one day this would come about, and that I wasn't going to let anybody tell me that I didn't have proof or marginalise the gaslighting that went on, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about it, because although the actual incident itself on the grand scale may seem like nothing, the gaslighting that went on afterwards is alarming at best. So, about 3 years ago, there was a large group of us from my World of Warcraft guild at a real life event. We got together to celebrate a very lovely occasion for some of our mutual friends, and it was a lovely event. It was in a beautiful setting. We were surrounded by good people, and it was a real privilege to be able to share that time with them. We had a lovely dinner, and after the dinner, Miana, because that's his name, made a quip about going down on me. I was really shocked. Nothing in our friendship up to that point had indicated that I would be interested in that. And I then asked, we moved from the dinner room because they had to turn it around so that we could dance in it later. We moved into another room to have coffee after the meal. And I asked some other friends to sit next to me because I didn't want him to have the opportunity to sit near me. I then spoke to one of the other women that was in our friend group and told her what had happened. And this is an exact quote from her. She said, "That's a bit rapey." Now, I know that term isn't pleasant, but it did really sum up the predatory nature of the comment and how it had made me feel like a piece of meat and unsafe in this person's in Miana's company. Later that night, despite me doing my best to avoid him, we ended up dancing together on the dance floor, and I had to tell Miana repeatedly that I didn't want his hands wandering. I felt like I was dealing with a corrupted Mr. Tickle whose hands would slide over me and try to pull me close, and that I couldn't stop him. So then I sat out from a lot of the dancing. Then about 2 months later, after the event and whatnot, I messaged him and I told him how he'd made me feel. And I'm going to read those messages now. "Hi, I wanted to say something that's been on my mind for a while. I'm sorry I didn't address it at the time. I found your behaviour towards me at the party unacceptable. Specifically the comment you made about going down on me and the intimate nature of your preferred dance moves. These things left me feeling uncomfortable and upset. I didn't feel I could approach you about it at the time, as I didn't want to detract from the event. I hope you understand." And then the reply: "Hi, I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm very sorry that is how you perceived me. I must admit that I don't recall on what occasion you are referring to, since I can't see myself intentionally making that crude joke. I push the boundaries a lot, I know. I know that, and I do give a lot of myself, which makes me perceived as crude, but that is only meant for humoristic effect. Having said that, I am not arguing against what you felt at the time. My intention might have been one thing, but I might have been perceived another, and in the end, perception is everything. It was never my intention to make you uncomfortable, and for that I am sorry. I have nothing but respect for you as a woman and as a friend. I hope we can move past this, and I will keep this in mind for the future. Again, it frightens me that that is how you perceived me. I do not want to be perceived as that, but this time I clearly was. I need to reflect on this. Thank you for mentioning it. I said thank you for your prompt response and apology. I want to move past it too. I then got another reply. After some reflection, I can start to see of what you are referring to. I can't recall everything, but I can see how it was uncomfortable. I would like to explain some things about me, but this is a long topic for me to go into. It has a lot to do about things I've been doing through my life, and I don't mind talking about it, but I will not be able to do it in a text. The main point is that I push boundaries, and that is a large part of who I am. The important thing, however, is that I am not saying this is an excuse for my behaviour. I always take responsibility for my actions, and I do give it as an explanation for my actions. The reason I am mentioning this is because I feel really bad I made you feel like that when all I wanted was to entertain and make people have a good time, and I want you to know that. It is not my place to ask you to forgive me. You have to decide that, but once you can, I would very much like that. And then my final response was, the important thing is simply to understand that sometimes actions cross a line. It was hard for me to say I felt uncomfortable and upset, as it's not easy confronting someone. As you said before, perception is everything. There's no need to explain anything. I had a boundary, it was crossed. I told you, you've apologised. Now it doesn't happen again, and we move on. And at that point, I thought, great, he's learnt from what I've said. He's going to reflect on himself and listen to it. And listen to what I've said and not let those things happen again. Looking back now that I have some more experience and education, it's quite clear that this response is full of gaslighting. And things like, I would like to explain some things about me. There is no, you can't explain anything. You can't justify making somebody uncomfortable. I'm sorry that is how you perceived me. It's not perception. You can't be sorry that I perceived you that way. That takes no responsibility of your actions. That puts it on my perception rather than it being on you for your actions. Saying I push the boundaries is not an excuse. Saying that I can't see myself intentionally making that crude joke, that is not an excuse. That is not a justification for behaviour. I have nothing but respect for you as a woman and as a friend. Well, clearly from these replies we can see that that was not the case. Anyway, at that time I stayed in the guild, of which he was the guild leader. And at that time he was a guild leader, and I continued to be in group conversations that he was present in. And a part of that was I wanted to make sure he didn't upset anybody else, but actually I was ineffective in that because I didn't call him out to everybody and I didn't name him. And I'm really sorry if anybody else has experienced anything at his hand that could be worse. A comment and roaming hands on the dance floor could be the least of it. Then last year, around April last year, I had a t-shirt from Game of Thrones, a Game of Thrones themed t-shirt that said "Not Today," and I shared a picture of that in our Game of Thrones chat. And again, I've taken screenshots, so I will read from those now. So I put the picture up, and his reply was, "Nice boobs." To which I said that's not appropriate. And the reply was, I'm sorry, it was meant to be funny. I did not mean to offend. If I did, I apologise. To which I replied, are you sorry though? Because we've spoken privately about your behaviour towards women and towards me in particular before, and yet from what I can see nothing has changed. Being genuinely sorry means not only taking responsibility for your behaviour, but also ensuring it doesn't happen again. And his reply was, first off, thank you for keeping our private conversation private. Secondly, from the picture you linked, I don't believe nice boobs is offensive. A bit randy perhaps, but not offensive. I am trying to respect you as much as I can, but I can't walk around on eggshells either. I need to be allowed to be who I am as well, so perhaps you should accept me as well. If I offended you, I apologise because it was not my intent. You are, of course, right. You are, of course, in your right to point that out. I will not be offended by that. We disagree on this for sure, on where the line is. I don't want to offend you, and when I do, I sincerely apologise. I am not perfect, nor do I feel I have stopped evolving as a person. However, I will not abandon who I am either. We will probably collide like this again, and when we do, I will apologise and try my best not to do it again. This is what friends do. That is what friends do, accept each other and try to do better. But if that's not enough for you, I respect that and I will leave all our common groups. And I simply replied, so much is wrong in that response, I'm not even going to bother addressing it. Don't worry, I'll just block you and then we won't have to encounter each other at all. But anybody who is familiar with the term gaslighting will know that those replies were full of gaslighting attempts, and the fact that it was in a group meant that he was also attempting to gaslight the group. I'm sorry, I did have a definition of gaslighting to share with you, but I can't find it now. But he's saying, I am trying to respect you. Well, you don't try to respect somebody, you either do or you don't. I can't walk around on eggshells either. I need to be allowed to be who I am. These are things that actual perpetrators of abuse say to their victims to make their victims believe that they're the ones that are wrong and that are creating it. We disagree on this for where the line is. I am not perfect, nor do I feel I've stopped evolving, but I will not abandon who I am. Whatever. That is what friends do, accept each other and try to do better. No, I do not have to accept you in my friend group. I do not have to tolerate your shitty behaviour. And I will not tolerate it. And obviously I have not been involved in any of the communities that this person is involved in anymore. So his in-game characters are called Miana or Bam Bam or Bambi. He was the guild leader of Jane Doe on Terracar EU. I know that he is now no longer the guild leader of that guild. I am no longer a member of that guild. In fact, I left last year when this all happened. And I sincerely hope that he is not inflicting this on other people who are not able to stand up for themselves. I do know that when I was in the guild, between the time that the first event happened and this comment was made last year, he would make some remarks in guild chat alluding to the fact that he was going to go off and, for want of a better term, have time for himself. And then he would always suffix that by saying, but in a gentlemanly way, of course. Like that made his comment any less disgusting. And that's kind of how he positions himself, it's just dangerous and shouldn't be allowed. I believe he's involved in the Jane Doe guild that is on Classic. I don't play in that guild anymore because he became a part of it. and I will not associate with anything that he has any handle in. I'm just really sorry if anybody else has encountered him and it's been worse. I'm sorry I didn't name him before. That is my biggest regret.
So this next experience is being sent in by someone that we will call Z. I reached out to Sil since this isn't only about online abuse and sexual harassment, since my story doesn't belong there. I asked if she covered all abuse, and she told me she did. So this is my story. Mark my words, this could have been in a horror movie, but it is real, and the justice have been served. I will take you back to 2004 into 2006, so 2 years of pain, to 15-year-old me. To a time where I thought everything was fine, and that I've met the one and only. K, I'm gonna use the first letter in his name, was handsome, he was older, he was a bad boy with tattoos. He had his own apartment. I thought he was everything I ever wanted, and I always found myself thinking I was so lucky to have him. The first 6 months of our relationship was nice. It was calm, safe, respectful. We talked a lot, about everything and nothing really. Kay was always understanding towards I wasn't ready to have sex yet. He said it was completely okay, and that I should take my time because you are my darling Z, you know I want what's best for you. We did all kinds of things together. He was so gentle and true to me. It all changed when he came home semi-tipsy and wanted more than just go to bed. I remember it clearly until the day I die. His smell, his movement, his eyes, his voice, his breath. I was sitting up waiting for him, as I've done so many times before. He leaned over and gave me a hard kiss. Confused, I kissed him back, which probably made him think I was all game. I stopped him and I said I was tired and I wanted to go to bed. As I wanted to get up from the couch, my eyes met his. Dark blue eyes where there was nothing in. It was all blank. He, out of nowhere, said, "I didn't tell you to go yet." Where I nervously giggled and said, "Oh, stop it, and let us go to bed." Kay slapped me across the face for the first time in that moment. I was stunned, in shock. I froze. My thoughts were running wild. What the hell just happened? What did I do wrong? He stood still for what felt like forever, and then hugged me. Kay assured me that it was a mistake, that it wasn't on purpose. He ran out and found a bag of ice to put on my chin and said, "I'm sorry, Z. I know what's best for you. Here, take this." And I did. I placed the bag on my chin. I was upset. My thoughts kept running over what I had done wrong. I didn't want to upset him, and he obviously knew what was best for me. I believed that. Things from that day onwards started to go downhill. Kay would slap me if I did something that was wrong in his head. It could be small things, as wearing something wrong. I looked too slutty or too pretty. I would have forgotten to wash a fork up, and he would lash out again. The violence got worse. He started to use the fists instead of a flat hand. Every time he would tell me he knew what was best for me. He stopped hitting my face and moved towards my stomach, because there was too many questions raised towards it that I couldn't counter. I said I was clumsy. I fell down the stairs, tripped outside, you name it. I made up excuses for him so he wouldn't get in trouble. The night he took my virginity was similar to most nights over the months. I had managed to make him angry by saying I wanted to go out, and I wasn't allowed to. I usually didn't fight him because he knew what was best for me, but that night I did. I wanted to go out and be with my friends, but he said no. I made a fuss about it and said it was unfair. I got told if I knew what was unfair to him, it was being denied sex for nearly a year. I told Kay he was stupid and reached for my jacket, when he grabbed my wrist and squished it so hard. "Stop, you're hurting me," I screamed to him with tears in my eyes. And Kay told me that I should make up for hurting him for so long. He pulled me into the bedroom and threw me in my back down on the bed, where the first punch landed in my stomach. All the air was sucked out of me, yet I still tried to fight it. The second punch landed on my ribs, and by then the pain was so unreal that I panicked and thought, if I stop fighting now, then he'll calm down. He always does. But he didn't. He looked at me and told me I was done hurting him and that he still knew what was best for me. So he rolled me over and yanked down my underwear and found his way inside. I screamed in pain over and over and begged him to stop. It went on for what felt like an eternity, until he finally pulled out and came. He then turned me around again and told me, "You do never disrespect me or disappoint me again." Obviously, I did that over and over again. This was only the start of my nightmare. More than often, I found myself chained to the bed, on my stomach, gagged and blindfolded. I found myself disappearing into my mind space to cope with the pain. It should be said that my back is covered with scars from whips, chains, kitchen knives running down my back, burn marks from cigarettes. I found myself begging for the last 9 months for Kay to just end it, or at least let me end it. I would rather die than living in this hell. And Lord knows I tried to end it. I started my drug addiction there. Jumping forward to the end of my nightmare, my mum and Jay saved me. I got away and went underground for a long time. I went into rehab to try and get clean. And when I saw the light again, I heard from different people how Kay found a new girl, got her pregnant, and beat her and their baby girl until he got into prison. So justice have been served. I went on with my life thinking I could do better. Better for me and better for everyone that went through any kind of nightmare. I studied hard and long to become a doctor, to help the people that need it the most. I tried to cope with my own PTSD. I thought that I could live with the scars and the pain that comes with it. But I couldn't do that. Not all of it, at least. I became a doctor, but I couldn't control the pain. I was scared to go outside. I was scared to fall asleep. When I closed my eyes, I saw Kay. I saw him in every man on the street. I saw ghosts. I couldn't be with people at all. I'm ashamed of my body. I can't show my stomach or back to people because of the scars. I didn't let anyone hug me or even get close because it hurt. It still does. To this day, I'm still in trauma therapy. I've been there for 5 years. I got diagnosed with severe PTSD, and I've spent my time trying to control the nightmare, trying to cope, and trying to learn how to live again. I've slowly over my time in therapy managed to get back to sleep, managed to respect myself a little, and most of all, managed to try not to blame myself for what happened. I still have a long way to go, and I'll never ever forget what he did to me, nor will it ever leave me. But I have faith in it someday will get a little easier, and that I someday will be able to give someone a hug. This was my story, and for all the women and men that are abused or sexually assaulted, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I survived it, so will you. Together we are stronger. So Zulzilla, who sent the first experience to me, which I read out, also made another post, which I think is very important for the community here to hear, so I will read that one out as well. Several women in the gaming community have come forward with truths that no one should have to bear. Stories no one should ever have to tell. These stories are not surprising. They are not new. They have been told time and time again throughout history, more so in recent history. The voices are different, but the words are all the same. Medusa has been on my mind a lot lately. Medusa was a mortal woman who was assaulted by Poseidon in Athena's temple. Athena punished Medusa, not Poseidon, for this by turning her into the monster we all know of today. Medusa was later slain by Perseus, her head taken as both trophy and weapon. Let that sink in. Women are tired of being punished for the actions of abusers who become heroes at our expense. We're tired of being violated and torn down by our fellow creatives in a community we adore and are just as much part of as our male peers. I read a few of the stories posted by women who have come forward. I believe them. I heard for them. For anyone reading their stories and thinking, well, that was just stupid, why didn't you? Stop. Just stop. Looking at someone's situation and feeling everything that person feels is impossible. Have you ever trusted someone you wish you hadn't? Made yourself feel safe around someone you knew you shouldn't? Consider the red flags you saw and burned in defense of someone you cared about, who led you to believe they cared about you. It's nothing. They were just kidding. They would never hurt me. They won't hurt me again. They promised it was the last time. Think about that. And if you've never experienced any of these phrases running rampant through your mind, consider yourself fortunate to be part of what is unfortunately an exceedingly small group of individuals. There is concern over what is going to happen to some of these women who work in this industry now that they've come forward. Employers, instead of knocking women down for speaking out about their abusers, hold yourself responsible for creating the environment in which that abuse was allowed to flourish. Because that is exactly what you've done when you have women working with you who choose to remain silent for fear of losing their livelihood. Or when you continue sponsoring or employing abusers, knowing of the wrongs they've committed against others. Listen to women. Stop punishing women for the actions of their abusers. Stop turning us into villains just because you can't keep your hands to yourself. Keep your damn hands to yourself. Let the stories that have been shared be a testament to how people will eventually know who you truly are. To the survivors who have come forward, you're brave. You're heard. You're loved. I stand with you. Many fans, content creators, and game industry employees stand with you. You are not alone. As a final bit, I want to share my experiences with abuse that I had to endure. And I think many of my friends will adhere that I've had the worst taste in boyfriends. I've had a guy punch me in the back with his fist, spit in my face, and threatened me into having sex with him when I was 15 years old. He was 20 at the time. I've had many exes physically and mentally abuse me. From shoving me into a wall, to being called stupid whore so many times that I lost count. Being manipulated to cater to their laziness so that I was the one working all the time to get rid of their debts. Gaslighting is one of the worst things, and for those who do not know what gaslighting is, I'll give you a definition. Psychologists use the term gaslighting to refer to a specific type of manipulation where the manipulator is trying to get someone else or a group of people to question their own reality, memory, or perceptions. And it's always a serious problem, according to psychologists. I did believe that I was to blame for everything bad that had happened at some point. And it messed with my head and perception of things. But eventually, I got out of those relationships. It wasn't until I met Dan and saw how he treated me and what it means when someone really cares for you that I realized how horrible these guys had treated me. And that I wasn't crazy. And it made me realize that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. I've never experienced the abuse personally from someone in our community. and I can't imagine what that can do to someone. Everyone in our community, whether you're a player, part of a guild, a podcast host, a streamer, a YouTuber, or have in some way a big presence in Warcraft, you have a responsibility to keep others safe and to call out people who are doing and saying things that are not okay. So let's make a stand together against these bullies, predators, rapists and abusers. I want to be there for the victims, and I want us as a community to make this a safe place. I want to give the victims a voice, and I want to do better to support them. To all the victims out there, I believe you, and I stand with you. And for my listeners, I hope you will all stand with me.